But the story that's still top of the headlines is the bridge collapse for our neighbors over in Maryland, the Baltimore bridge that was hit by the gigantic container ship. Uh, we have a few more details, and Brian Cavanaugh from the Heritage Foundation is going to help us wade through them. So, when I started the show yesterday, we didn't have any number on the casualties, but now we're hearing 6 presumed dead, and I haven't seen anything on injuries. Do you know anything more than that, Brian?
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you for having me on the show. We have 6, as of last I checked, that have not been found and are presumed dead. There was 2 additional construction workers that were on the bridge but not in a vehicle when the bridge was struck. They were rescued, and both have been, one did not request medical attention on the scene, and the other one was released from a hospital last evening.
Wow, imagine their story. All right, so yesterday afternoon before the end of the show, the president came out and said, this is all going to be put on my tab. What's going on with that, Brian? The taxpayers have to cover this bill?
I find that interesting myself. Cargo ship container industry is required to carry liability insurance for damage to infrastructure. In fact, the ship that was involved in yesterday's bridge collision, that's the second time it's hit infrastructure.
What? This has done it before?
In 2016, this same ship in Belgium caused damage to infrastructure in the port there. And the ship is only a 2015 vessel.
Okay, so I heard also that the ship was flying a Singaporean flag, but was under a contract, I guess like a rental or Uber or something, from a Danish company. So I'm still trying to connect on how me and you are getting stuck with the bill.
Yeah, the nuances of how cargo vessels choose to flag, which country they flag, and which country the business operates in is pretty complicated and complex paperwork maneuvering to avoid certain taxes and regulation. But I'm not sure how the president thinks it's appropriate for the United States to pick up a tab when the U.S. Coast Guard and the NTSB are going to conduct 2 investigations in parallel. Both of them will seek to determine cause. And I think this is a clear case where, from what I can tell, looks like mechanical cause. You see the lights on the vessel go out about 25, 30 seconds before it hits the bridge. There's black smoke coming from the stack. The lights come back on for a moment, and then 10 seconds later, with the lights off again on the ship, it's hitting the bridge.
No. Just
interesting.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Interesting is I started to hear last night interesting swirls about fuel and dirty fuel being a possible cause. But I think it's important for your listeners to know is the Biden administration adopted UN climate regulation recommendations in 2022. It changed the type of fuel these vessels are using when they're within 200 nautical miles of the United States to a low sulfur, low emissions diesel, which has been, from what I hear from ship captains, has been giving them fits. It causes challenges with the engine and this loss of propulsion. I think this investigation will be really interesting to see what led to the loss of propulsion from this vessel.
Well, I think the common homeowner has seen that because we now have to clean out the carburetor on our lawnmowers about once every 2 years because it gets gunk in it from ethanol, where we didn't have to do that before. But they, put this stuff that leaves water in your lawnmower, and it's that nasty kind of tan goo stuff. It's disgusting. So I'm assuming it's similar to that.
That is what I'm hearing. Yes.
Leaves funky deposits, and you know what, Brian? That whole industry is shady. The way that they choose flags, because I went on a cruise in January, and this giant Carnival cruise ship was flagged to where? Panama. Really? This is a Panama-based operation? No. It's squirrely. There's I don't know. It just rings of corruption to me.
One of the things that we've done well in this country is we have a thing called the Jones Act, and that's for commerce traveling between states on the water, and it requires a U.S.-owned, U.S.-operated, U.S.-flagged vessel. So at least when we're talking about commerce going between states in this country, whether it's Hawaii and the West Coast or up the Mississippi River, that we have gotten that to a place where we've got that where it's guaranteed to be American flagged, American operated, American owned vessel.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'm a big fan. But what's next for this bridge situation? Are they going to rebuild it exactly the way it was? Are they going to build a new bridge? Do we have any idea?
I think the most important thing is they get the debris out of the way. I mean, obviously we want to rescue and recover the six individuals that are missing. But Baltimore's port is the ninth busiest port in the U.S. It's responsible for about $3.2 billion in revenue in the Mid-Atlantic region. We've trapped 40 vessels inside the port of Baltimore that can't get out.
Oh no! I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, so that bridge is a single point of failure for getting vessels in and out of the harbor. And now you're talking about rerouting another 30 vessels that were supposed to come into that port over the next 2 days. So they need to get the port open, resume commerce. And then in terms of the bridge, I think that's going to be a 12 to 18-month long project, regardless of who's going to end up paying for that.
All right. Well, thank you, Brian Cavanaugh from the Heritage Foundation, for taking time on the James Show.
All right. Thank you.
All right. What do you think? Now that we know a little bit more, now that we've had another 24 hours to digest this and talk about it again, was this really an accident? And there's two types of accidents. An accident where everyone does everything right and, things can still go wrong. We're in a human endeavor. Something could have broke or someone could have zigged when they should have zagged. Or was there human error involved? Was there human negligence involved? And I'm not trying to point the finger or blame somebody, but let's get to the bottom of this because I don't need to see any more of these bridges collapsing. So I talked to a lot of people yesterday on the show who said, James, that's not just an accident. James, that's more than just an oopsie. And I can see why you would say that. The ship's blinking on and off. Of all the places it could have randomly gone in the harbor, there are really only two places it could have gone that would have crushed that poor little bridge. The fact that it happened when it did, the fact that there was a little bit of warning. I mean, I don't think it was anything more than someone screwed up. I don't know if it was a well-intentioned accident or a negligent, reckless accident. I doubt it was sabotage. I mean, look, people screw up stuff all the time, and it was fun finding out that ship had done the bumper boats like celebration station before. The previous time it was over in Belgium. And I didn't know Baltimore was such an important harbor, ninth busiest harbor we have in America. Okay, well, learning a lot here with this ship. But that doesn't upset me. What upsets me is the reaction to it. And for some reason, we're getting the bill for this. Now, in my perfect world, whoever ran the boat into the bridge should pay for it. They should pay the families of the people who died. They should pay to rebuild the bridge. They should pay whatever. If someone needs to be compensated because of this mistake, I don't know, legally speaking, like which one is going to end up with the bill, but it's either going to be the dude who owns the boat or the people who contracted the boat or the people who have insurance on the boat or the people who have insurance on the contractors, or maybe they have AFLAC. I don't know. But it shouldn't be you. It shouldn't be me. Look, I don't know where you live, Dallas, Keller, Waxahachie, wherever you are, but you were just sleeping in your own bed Monday night when this happened, about 12:30 our time, minding your own business. But some Danish guys were in a boat from Singapore, crash into a bridge over 1,000 miles away, and you get stuck with the bill. That's what I'm scratching my head about. There's a guy online being passed around on social media, Chick Wilfong. He says it pretty passionately, but he's kind of on the same wavelength.
Whoa. Wait a damn minute. I just saw where your president came on and said the federal government is going to pay for this bridge in Maryland. 100%. We 100% didn't vote on that. We 100% didn't decide to take on the bills of a Singapore flag flying ship, all right, under a Danish contract, all right? I'm no good at sit-ups, push-ups, or pull-ups, but I'm outstanding. I'm an old pro at ups. And if you it up, you fix it. You don't charge somebody else for the ups of a foreign country. You make the insurance on the ship pay for it. You make the Danish people that it was contracted to pay for it. Hell, it's flying under a Singapore flag. Anybody but the taxpayers. Have you got to the point, is this government so up that they think any screw up that happens, it's on old John Q. taxpayer? I hope the hell you people are paying attention come November, because this is
Well, this has been a long practice in politics. This is just a classic political move. You get moral credit, at least in the media and for PR purposes, for being generous with other people's money. Now, you and I know in real life, from the position of an actual unbiased taking of this, you don't get moral credit for being generous with other people's money, but that's not how it works. You get the positive press conference, you get the positive results, you get to hand out the checks, they get to put cameras on the families that are getting the help, and you look like the guy who's just coming in and saving. Makes you look good. But really, you're just a thief. You're using stolen wealth to buy yourself this favor. You think you sound empathetic, but you're not actually doing anything of yourself. You're not giving of your own time and of your own resources. It's not like you're going to go out of your checking account to pay for the bridge, or you're even going to host a fundraiser so people can make voluntary donations to repay for the building of that bridge. You're taking the money from people. And if you don't directly take it, you print it, which is the same as taking it. Because now when you go to Whataburger, it'll be $15 for a number one instead of just 11. You get to say nice things in front of the camera. You get to shower people with money. You get to play Santa Claus is what you're doing. But it's all done with your money. This is all, you're getting the tab for that, directly or indirectly. This is going to cost you. This is going to cost you in standard of living. This is going to cost you for, God forbid, you were one of the responsible ones and you've managed to save up $100,000, maybe $200,000. Guess what? If we have another little scratch of inflation there like we had last year, you can kiss 20,000 of that away, at least the spending power of it away. You're paying for this. It's something that you have to see like a chessboard. Not what happens if I move this piece here right now. Okay, if you move that piece here, what else is going to happen? And then what are you going to do after that? And then what's going to happen? And if you think like 4 or 5 moves ahead, you start thinking, oh my goodness, you put it together. The reason why these houses are so expensive and you can't afford to stop renting and buy a house is because you got that $600 check in 2000. That was sold to you as free money at the time, but you're paying for it now. You're paying for it for the rest of your life. You're paying for it because we all got a pay cut. We all got a 9% pay cut last year because of inflation. Is that cool with you? Or I guess in 2022. So you can go out and you can be generous with other people's money. Yeah, here you go. No, don't worry about it. We'll pay for it. You're getting the tab. Just imagine you go to you go to like a banquet. And the guy standing at the head of the table says, drinks on me. Woo, thank you. Oh, what a nice guy. And then when the bill comes, they just slide it to you. There you go. Well, this guy already got the credit for being the cool guy, for handing out all the goodies. You're the one that gets the tab. And it's okay to do mindless things and to have mindless hobbies, whether you're just making furniture in your garage or you watch sports or you watch the Real Housewives of wherever. But you got to pay attention to this stuff, too. If you only do that, if you only do the entertaining stuff, if you only do the mindless, dumb stuff, we're in big trouble. I'm going to give you credit and assume that, obviously, since you're listening to this right now, when you could be listening to music, when you could be doing some other mindless version of entertainment, you're listening to WBAP, you probably listen quite a bit. You're probably more informed. How do we make this cool for the other people to know? That's not cool when they hand out your money to rebuild a bridge that you had nothing to do with. That's not cool when they do all this deficit spending that causes the money you saved to be worth less, to give you a pay cut. And even if you're like, oh, well, I can afford it, I'll be okay. Okay, think about the least among us here. Think about the waiters and the bartenders and the janitors and the people making minimum wage. They all got a pay cut too. They all just got a pay cut because of this bridge. Now, it's going to be a drop in the bucket compared to the $1.7 trillion whatever deficit that they're trying to run this year, but there's 1,000 paper cuts like this. We've got to stop this idea that every time there's a tornado, the federal government swoops in and starts handing out money. Every time there's a flood, federal government swoops in and starts handing out money. When there's a hurricane, emergency declaration, well, we freed up $8 billion to go to Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama for some storm. We've got to stop that. Benevolence, charity, is not the purview of the federal government. The taxpayers are not some sort of bottomless well of generosity. This is not working. This is not good. This is not moral. This isn't even charity. This is politicians abusing you for positive PR. Philip in Temple, you're on the James Show. What do you think about this Baltimore Bridge situation?
Well, I just wanted to add to what you were saying about how they how they swoop in and try to come out like heroes by spending other people's money. That it's also really partisan when they do that. It got me thinking about it. They say, well, they pick winners and losers. I don't even like that phrase anymore. They pick favorites. And what I mean is that, go back to the train derailment in, was it Palestine, this town?
Yeah, East Palestine, Ohio, right?
Exactly. Did they go in and foot that bill? No, they put the bill on the train company. So either if they don't align with the company, the corporation, or the entity, or if it's a state that's not their politics and their ideology.
Yeah, they reward their allies and punish their opponents. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that what government's supposed to be?
Yeah, whether it's supposed to be that or not, that's exactly what happens with every reign of power that you give them, every lever of power, every button that they can push, every dollar they can spend on a long enough time scale. Of course, it will be misused. We are human beings, and they will reward their allies and punish their opponents. You're absolutely right. Any other thoughts on that, Philip?
James? Yeah, James. I'm not giving any political side of a free pass, but does it happen on both sides of the party? And
it does.
Okay, then, well, gosh, okay, if it does, when it does happen, it's usually for, look at the ones, if you look at two sides of the party, when money is spent, there's one that it's usually for something that's logical, sensible, and right. And you say, well, who decides what's right? Well, you just put down it's based on logic if it's right. If it's harmful, or if it favors a political party, that's fitting their narrative, their ideology, supporting them. It's not doing for the good. And lots of times, I think there's a division on the spending. Some things are actually good for it, and some things are for personal interest or political interest.
Well, it also creates kind of perverse incentives, like in the way that the government swoops in and they're charitable about whenever there's a flood or there's a hurricane, and they do the National Flood Insurance Protection. We would stop building houses in vulnerable places, or at least if we had to build a house in a vulnerable place, we'd make it out of cinder blocks and make it a little more sturdy. But if you're having your insurance subsidized and you're having the payment for your house, that's all subsidized, we are encouraging people to build in dangerous, unstable places where it's not efficient, where we're going to waste even more resources in the future by being generous now. There's all kinds of horrible things that happen as a result of charity being put in the hands of government, and that's just a few. We're just seeing it all happen in real time.
Hey, I've been enjoying it since you've been on the air. Happy to have you, and you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. That's Philip in Temple. Philip in Temple's kind of far. I guess our AM signal reaches there, so he's probably not listening on FM. Good to hear from you there, Philip in Temple. But yeah, it is kind of your fault though. So you need to pay for this bridge getting fixed. I know you don't captain a boat. I know you don't work on a boat, but it's still kind of your fault. I know you didn't rent the boat. I know you didn't contract it. But there might be something that you ordered on Amazon in one of those containers. So I guess you got to pay for it. I love this. This is such a hard thing to argue against, because it sounds like I'm arguing against being generous. It sounds like I'm arguing with charity. It sounds like I'm arguing with, I guess we're just not going to rebuild the bridge. No, that's not it at all. Just like when I say we should get rid of food stamps, that doesn't mean I think we should let people go hungry. I just think we should put that under the purview of private sector voluntary donations instead of government. I think one of the worst, least efficient ways you can allocate your scarce charitable resources is through the most giant government apparatus possible, and that's D.C. I mean, if you are going to be generous through government, do it at a local level. Do it at like a county level or a municipal level. where if there are negative consequences, if there is corruption, or if there is overspending, or just an inefficient allocation of resources, to be economic about it, at least the damage is confined within the small jurisdiction of the people who actually have a little bit better control over that than they would over something that happens in DC. So yeah, that's kind of the latest. Let's see, TJ and Ferris. TJ and Ferris, you're on the James Show. What do you think?
Well, I don't think that the taxpayer should have to pay for it carte blanche. And I have another concern I haven't heard anybody voice is, what about them searching for the people in those other vehicles? And they know that there are other vehicles in the water, and even that semi. I mean, there are other families out there hurting, looking for their loved ones, and nobody's addressing that at all.
No, they're addressing that. I think they've gotten six people that are still missing. We picked a few people up out of the water, and no one's going to leave that behind. But yeah, it kind of stinks that they don't get more of the focus, and we are forced to sort of take the political angle on all this. But
exactly, yeah, well, yeah, Matt. No, I don't think that the politicians are right in saying that that the government should pay for this repair when that freighter hit.
Yeah.
I know of some people that were talking yesterday, and one gentleman was extremely knowledgeable in the afternoon. I don't know if you can go back to his tape. He was a former ship's captain, and he said that those lights going out had nothing to do with that smoke coming out. That had to do with them reversing
and hitting the engines real hard, trying to stop it when it came back on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say this is fun, but there is sort of an interesting sleuthing that we all get to do in situations like this, because it is kind of like reading a crime novel. Like, let's put all the pieces together and figure out, was it Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick, or... Do you suffer from allergies? Some people have allergies year-round. Some people have seasonal allergies. I have sort of seasonal allergies. I have 2 weeks in the spring and 2 weeks in the fall where I'm kind of stuffy. This isn't it. Don't worry. It's coming up in April. You'll hear me for like 2 weeks. I'll sound like I have a cold. And then we'll do the same thing in September. So you can make fun of me if you want. And then I see this little list here that says Dallas is the 4th worst place to live if you suffer from allergies. Well, that stinks. Is there anything we can do about it? Let's ask Dr. Jill Wagner, back on the James Show. Welcome back. First things first, what can we do if we suffer from allergies and we have to live in this area?
Well, if there's any way you can avoid being outside, but who can do that unless you're going to be a hermit? So the first thing that you have to know is, if there's any way for you to know what you're allergic to, then you ought to get some testing and find out what it is you're allergic to. If you know that, you can kind of watch the pollen count, and when those things are high, you may want to, as they say in the church, govern yourself accordingly. But the other thing is, there's just some simple things. There's some over-the-counter antihistamines, things like irrigating your nasal passages, taking off your clothes when you get inside after you've been outside, just good common sense stuff to try to remove the pollen from your clothes and to limit your exposure.
All right, now you caught my attention there when you said the irrigation system. So they have the neti pots, or I don't know if the guy listening has seen it, but the process by which you can pour water through one nostril and it comes out the other one.
Together, yes.
That's
So you can irrigate like that. Also, there's just saline nasal sprays that you can irrigate just to get the pollen off your nasal mucosa.
So which over-the-counter ones do you recommend?
There are several. There's one called Simply Saline that's been around for a long time, and it's just that. Simply Saline, meaning salt water. So you can get that. It comes in a little can. You can spray that. There are a couple now, too, that are over the counter that have a little essential oil in them, like a little peppermint oil. For some people, that helps as well, particularly with thinning the mucus and, kind of opening up the mucosa.
All right, well, let's talk about drugs. I have found regular old Benadryl works pretty good for me, but it does have the side effect of sort of slowing me down. And then I don't know what Zyrtec is, but that kind of works too. Do you have a recommendation? Anything else I should try, or any thoughts on those?
Yeah, well, both of those are pure antihistamine. So what happens when you get exposed to an allergy is there's some of your immune system cells release histamine, which causes swelling in those blood vessels, and you get congested and engorged. So any antihistamine, like Benadryl is the classic one, but it sedates people. Then the other two plain antihistamines are Claritin and Zyrtec, like you said. They're less sedating, but they're also pure antihistamines, and they work well for a lot of people.
All right. Well, I hope you got some help from that. Thank you, Dr. Jill Wagner, talking about allergies. All right, I want to get back to the phones here because there's a couple of good calls I left hanging out, and we're going to go to Paul in Richardson. What's your thoughts about the Baltimore bridge crash, Paul?
Yes. Welcome, James. Welcome to the party, pal, as John McCain would say. But
McLean.
McLean, yeah. I was just testing. Okay. Well, the bridge crash, Biden is beholden to China, and where was that shipping company from?
Singapore. The boat's flagged to Singapore.
Yes, isn't Singapore part of China?
Not really. It's the majority of the nationality of the majority of the people in Singapore are Chinese, but it's technically a city-state in its own country, and it is autonomous, and it's not connected to China, so it's not the same thing. It's not under the thumb of the Chinese Communist Party, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I had college a long time ago, so I forgot all that, but I guess not. Well, when they're trying to take over Taiwan, I was in Hong Kong. I just assumed that Singapore was already there. But anyway, I thought that might be a issue since he's kind of been taking money from them, that he would owe them those favors. So
you have to ask these questions. Hunter has been taking millions of dollars from Chinese interests and Ukrainian interests and Kazakhstan and actually Russians as well. So if you want to question the moral backstop on all these, you're right to do it. Well, I mean, we know he wasn't hired off of merit. We know no one looked at their board of directors at a Ukrainian gas firm and they're like, hey, let's get that cokehead from the United States, the one that just knocked up the stripper and denied paternity. Yeah, he'd be perfect for our board. Let's get him. Let's pay him millions. No, not one person. That conversation's never happened. So
exactly.
All right.
We can throw a little fake news out there ourselves then.
Great. Hey, thanks for calling in, Paul. I appreciate it. And I can squeeze in Miguel. I think Miguel's called before. Welcome back to the James Show, Miguel.
Thanks, James. Appreciate your show. Sorry for my raspy voice. I'll try to be brief. First of all, I'm proud to be an ADL, all-day listener. Thanks to my job, I'm able to do that.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Two quick points.
Okay.
The first one is the difference between when we as individuals do something versus when the government does something is the fleecing effect. In other words, you and I will do something. If our roof needs to be repaired, guess what? We spend the money to repair the roof, and we don't have to bribe nobody, none of that stuff. Now, the second point is this is connected to the government and human nature in general, and that is that when people have ulterior or malice intent, and especially if it's not their own money, they don't care. The true meaning of charity is when you're going to give something away and not get nothing in return. And I'll stop at that.
Right. And you're right. This does not meet the definition of charity to make the taxpayers pay for the rebuilding of this bridge. This meets the definition of socialized public relations. This is campaigning on the public dime. Pretty unethical stuff.